Welcome to CBN NewsWatch this Tuesday, August 17th, 2021. Coming up, heartbreaking images in Afghanistan as thousands of Afghans want to flee the country. We'll give you an update. Plus, it's been a massive heat wave in our country, causing concern for those exposed to the elements.
When you think of somebody that has to live out on the heat every day and sleep out on the heat, that is so dangerous.
Learn how the heat affects the body and why one doctor says people tend to downplay the dangers. And some Americans believe the 2020 election was stolen, despite mainstream media saying such claims are false.
What's really developed is two different realities. It's the one we live in that's based on truth and trust, and the other that's based on whatever the former president says.
Dale Hurd has more on this story and why there continue to be demands for statewide audits. All this and more coming up next.
This is CBN NewsWatch.
We begin with the chaos in Afghanistan. Overnight, the Taliban announced amnesty for all Afghans and are urging women to join its government. This as we see those heartbreaking images, thousands of Afghans so desperate to escape. Meanwhile, President Biden says he stands by his decision to withdraw U.S. troops. CBN's Jenna Browder brings us more from Washington.
After a full day of dramatic images of Afghans trying to flee the Taliban takeover of Kabul, President Biden addressed the nation Monday. While he stuck by his decision to leave Afghanistan, he offered no explanation for why the U.S. wasn't prepared for the rapid collapse. Chaos and desperation at the Kabul airport. Thousands of Afghans crowding the runway, surrounding this massive military jet, clinging to the outside of the fuselage, some of them falling to their deaths. Inside 640 of the lucky. The Taliban announcing they're now in full control of Afghanistan. The outcry over those scenes forcing President Biden to come down from Camp David and talk to the American people.
I stand squarely behind my decision.
The president blaming the rapid fall of Afghanistan on the Afghan government and military.
The truth is, this did unfold more quickly than we had anticipated. So what's happened? Afghanistan political leaders gave up and fled the country. The Afghan military collapsed, sometime without trying to fight.
And his predecessor.
When I came into office, I inherited a deal that President Trump negotiated with the Taliban.
On Capitol Hill, few lawmakers, Republican or Democrat, are defending Biden.
What we have seen is an unmitigated disaster, a stain on the reputation of the United States of America.
Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell adding that the country could once again become a safe harbor for terrorists.
Every terrorist around the world, in Syria, in Iraq, in Yemen, in Africa, are cheering the defeat of the United States military by a terrorist organization.
Even top Democrats are critical. Senate Intelligence Committee Chairman Mark Warner issuing a statement calling for an investigation into the collapse. I hope to work with the other committees of jurisdiction to ask tough but necessary questions about why we weren't better prepared for a worst-case scenario involving such a swift and total collapse of the Afghan government and security forces. There are also growing concerns over human rights, especially for women and girls. Biden says he'll continue to speak up for them, but many worry that won't be enough. In an effort to calm the population, the Taliban is offering amnesty and inviting women to join their government. However, in parts of the country, there are growing reports of girls as young as 15 being forced to marry Taliban fighters. Jenna Browder, CBN News.
Eric Patterson, the executive vice president at the Religious Freedom Institute and scholar at large at Regent University's Robertson School of Government, joins us now with more. Eric, the latest news this morning is the Taliban granting amnesty and even inviting women to join their government. Why do you think they're doing this?
Well, it seems like it's probably a fig leaf for the most part. They want to assuage international concern, but Afghanistan is already one of the worst places for violence against women and the persecution of religious minorities, including Christians. And so it's going to be, time will only tell if there's some resolve there by the Taliban leadership to be a more inclusive and peaceful government.
Based on their track record, how will religious minorities, particularly those who convert from Islam to Christianity, be treated under Taliban rule?
Well, their track record is deplorable, but so is the track record of Afghanistan more generally. This is a nut that we were unable to crack. We didn't have the political will. The West did not to push Afghanistan in the right direction. For instance, the last Jew, the very last one, shuttered the synagogue in Kabul and left in June, well before the Taliban got there. The Christians, which only make up 10 to 18,000 people in the country, they're destined for greater persecution. But there's been tremendous persecution against them for the past 20 years, despite the U.S. and the West being there. So it's a dire situation for religious minorities.
Eric, President Biden said the war was lost already. Given your military background, do you agree?
Well, this was a war that had a clear objective at the beginning to smash al-Qaeda, and then we stayed for 20 years. And so this is not an example of victory. If victory means either beating your opponent or a vindication of your values spreading like we spread our values at the end of World War II in Germany and Japan. We did not meet either of those objectives. And just as the Council of Foreign Relations president or Fareed Zakaria on CNN yesterday said, this is both a policy failure and an intelligence failure.
What are your thoughts on those heartbreaking images of all the Afghans trying to flee? What did you think? What went through your mind when you saw those?
Well, it truly is heartbreaking, and it shows that the people on the ground know what's coming. I think that what was so debilitating is the thought that the Afghan leaders across the country, in provincial capitals and in cities and towns, that they had already sold out. And I think that's the intelligence failure, is that we didn't realize that over the past year or 2 years that the Taliban was negotiating secret deals with government officials telling them, if you stand down, we will not come in and torch you and your families. And that's what we missed. We were not paying attention to actually excellent diplomacy by the Taliban, who pledged either force or some amnesty to those folks.
All right, Eric Patterson, thank you for your insight, sir.
It's a pleasure to be with you. Thank you.
Appreciate it. In other news, Tropical Depression Grace swept over Haiti on Monday. This after a massive 7.2 magnitude earthquake hit the area over the weekend. Heavy rain and strong winds affected the area's recovery efforts. Makeshift camps were made for some, while others scrambled to protect their belongings in the rain. Right now, hundreds of people are still missing, and the death toll is now at about 1,300. More severe weather is expected today in the area. Meanwhile, Tropical Storm Fred made landfall in parts of the Florida Panhandle Monday afternoon with maximum sustained winds of 65 miles per hour. The storm brought in more than 7 inches of rain, causing widespread flooding. No major injuries or deaths were reported. The storm is now a tropical depression and is expected to hit portions of Georgia and the mid-Atlantic. While rain and storms are hitting some areas of the U.S., it's scorching hot temperatures in others. Also, there's a growing concern about these extreme heat waves and a public that tends to underestimate the danger. Senior National Affairs correspondent Heather Sells reports on what scientists are learning about the heat, its impact on the body, and public messaging.
It's noon in Las Vegas, well above 100 degrees, and a long line is forming outside this Salvation Army canteen. Workers are handing out cold drinks and a sandwich right next to a city cooling shelter. It's open for women and men who live on the streets.
When you think of somebody that has to live out on the heat every day and sleep out on the heat, that is so dangerous.
Juan Salinas is concerned.
They're tired, they're just exhausted, right?
And rightly so.
Within this last week, we've had about 5 deaths. 2 of them were found in a car.
More than 100 people die in Las Vegas each year from heat-related causes. Nationwide, the number tops 700, making extreme heat the deadliest weather in the U.S. Part of the problem, the urban landscape.
Cities like Las Vegas are more vulnerable to extreme heat, and for good reason. Pavement and buildings absorb and retain heat more than natural land, creating what's known as urban heat islands.
We're putting more pavement, black pavement, more buildings, stone, concrete, thermal mass that can not only absorb heat and then let it out over the night, keeps the average temperature higher, but can also reflect sunlight onto other areas as well.
That can push temperatures up by as much as 7 degrees in cities compared to outlying areas.
Most of the people is aware that, for example, hurricanes or big thunderstorm.
Dr. Eric Mandala says the public tends to downplay the dangers of extreme heat compared to other weather events. His research on heat in Las Vegas highlights those most at risk.
What we found was that elderly is probably the most vulnerable group.
Specifically, adults over 50 with pre-existing heart disease. Other groups include young people abusing alcohol or drugs, the homeless, and those who work outdoors. The good news, heat-related illness and death is preventable. The keys are limiting time spent outside when temperatures are spiking and carefully hydrating.
It's not just a question of drinking a lot of water, but drinking electrolytes.
Another tool to help city dwellers fight the summer heat, urban forestry, which promotes more trees to cool cities and keep people safe. Reporting in Las Vegas, Heather Sells, CBN News.
Coming up, some believe the 2020 election was stolen. Now it's a call for statewide audits. We'll have more on this coming up.
I am Region's first ROTC graduate student.
I'm Ephraim Graham, and this is Studio 5. Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
The fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film, I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Wednesday night at 8:30 on the CBN News Channel.
How'd you like to get a redo on your health, on your body, on your arteries, so you could have the energy you had 20 years ago? The great news is you can. I'm Dr. Mike Roizen, chair of the Wellness Institute at the Cleveland Clinic. I've written 4 New York Times bestsellers. But even better than having to read all that, you can listen to this DVD and watch it. Protect your heart? Yes, you can. Here's how.
Go to CBN.com or call 1-800-700-7000 for your free copy of Protect Your Heart. Let the medical experts show you their new discoveries on how to avoid heart disease and even reverse it. Easy steps to uncover the hidden dangers in your medicine cabinet, reduce stress, and get a complete do-over for your health. Call 1-800-700-7000. That's 1-800-700-7000. Or go to CBN.com to claim your free copy of Protect Your Heart.
Welcome back to NewsWatch. Here are some other stories making headlines in the CBN newsroom. U.S. experts are expected to recommend COVID-19 booster shots. This will be available for all Americans 8 months after receiving the second dose of the shot. It is to ensure lasting protection against the virus. The Biden administration is set to overhaul its food stamp program, that is. The plan is to provide a permanent 27% bump in aid for roughly 42 million eligible citizens. This is the biggest increase for the program. It is expected to take effect October 1st. Climate change, drought, and high demand expected to force the first ever mandatory cuts to the water supply from the Colorado River. This will affect 40 million people across the West. Nearly 1 in 3 Americans think the 2020 election was stolen, despite the major media claiming it was the most secure election ever. So which is it, the big lie or the big steal? And why are there more and more demands for statewide audits? Dale Hurd has the story.
2016.
Watch mainstream media news reports about claims the 2020 election was stolen, and you'll first be greeted with a banner that says such claims are false, bogus, or the big lie. Even the former head of cybersecurity for the federal government under Donald Trump says 2020 was the most secure election in U.S. history. Christopher Krebs was eventually fired by Trump.
What's really developed is two different realities. It's the one we live in that's based on truth and trust, and the other that's based on whatever the former president says.
But a recent Rasmussen poll shows almost 1 in 3 American voters now think the election was stolen. If Joe Biden did win fair and square, it was one of the strangest and most improbable victories in presidential election history, one that went opposite to trusted election metrics that go back decades. There's a saying that where there's smoke, there's fire. And when it comes to claims that something was seriously amiss with the 2020 election results, there certainly seems to be a lot of smoke. Where's the smoke? For starters, thousands of sworn affidavits alleging election fraud or irregularities, given under penalty of perjury. New Mexico State University law professor David Clements, a former assistant district attorney on the southern border, says the evidence of wrongdoing in the 2020 elections is far stronger than the drug cases he prosecuted.
I've never had a case with this much evidence, with this degree of quality to the evidence in my entire career.
Clements is assisting a volunteer army of thousands of concerned Americans meeting on the app Telegram under the name America First Audit, building a case for election fraud under the leadership of General Michael Flynn. Another leader of the group, former Army Captain Seth Keshel, an elections expert who correctly picked all 50 states in the 2016 election, says he's uncovered at least 8 million excess votes for Joe Biden. Votes that should not exist.
It's easiest to find in states that track voters, register voters by party. And you can see the trend line where Biden's projected vote total should wind up. I estimate generously for Biden, and you still wind up with a total that's beyond logic.
Keshel says his calculations showed Trump won Pennsylvania, Georgia, Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Arizona, and Nevada. Whether or not that's actually the case, we do know that Trump carried 18 of 19 bellwether counties, which have correctly predicted the winner of every presidential election since 1980. And yet somehow Trump lost. CBN News election analyst John Waggy.
So these are the counties that we look at. I've been studying these things for more than 40 years, and what we look at are the counties where the presidential winner comes out on top every time.
Trump also carried 4 bellwether states, Florida, North Carolina, Ohio, and Iowa. But Keshel says the most startling thing to him from the election was that Trump won Florida but not Pennsylvania and Michigan. The 3 states have trended together since 1932.
88 years in a row, so 22 consecutive elections, Florida, Pennsylvania, and Michigan trend together. And then this year is the one where they no longer trend together.
Other indicators that showed Trump should have won, his overwhelming strength in the primaries.
Trump was not a weak incumbent, regardless of what the media puts out there. Trump had one of the highest shares of primary vote ever, 94%.
Another indicator for a Trump victory was his gaining a record 11 million more votes in 2020 than he did in 2016.
From my perspective as an analyst, things have never added up about this election. I mean, Joe Biden campaigned from his basement, and he finishes with far more votes than his predecessor, Barack Obama. It doesn't make sense.
Election audits have been underway or are being fought over in 6 states. The audit fight in Maricopa County, Arizona, has led to a new investigation of the county by the state's Republican Attorney General, even as the audit has been blasted by the state's Democratic Secretary of State, who calls it a sham.
I think it's doing a lot of harm, not just to elections here in Arizona, but there are election officials across the country watching what's going on here with a lot of concern because they are honestly writing the playbook because they want to do this in other states.
An audit is also underway in Fulton County, Georgia. The home of Atlanta and reportedly so rife with corruption, state lawmakers may attempt to take over the county election board. One of the leaders of the movement to uncover election fraud, MyPillow founder Mike Lindell presented his evidence at a cyber symposium this week and offered $5 million to anyone who could prove his evidence of a stolen election was wrong. Some in the media have now decided the inventor of the MyPillow is a threat to the nation. But it's interesting to note who else has said our election process is not secure. Democrats, a lot of them, after the 2016 election.
These voting machines can be hacked quite easily.
You could easily hack into them.
But researchers have repeatedly demonstrated that ballot recording machines and other voting systems are susceptible to tampering.
Even hackers with limited prior knowledge, tools, and resources are able to breach voting machines in a matter of minutes.
We know how vulnerable now our systems were. I know the hackathon that took place last year, where virtually every machine was broken into fairly quickly.
I actually held a demonstration for my colleagues here at the Capitol, where we brought in folks who, before our eyes, hacked election machines.
It's not clear how America's elections suddenly became so secure in 2020. But if they really are secure and nothing was amiss in Joe Biden's victory, no one should fear an audit. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
On October 1st, 1961, history was made when a tiny station began transmitting the first signals of the Christian Broadcasting Network.
CBN, the Christian Broadcasting Network.
And now, a new era has begun with the all-new CBN News Channel.
Just moments ago, the Iron Dome intercepted an incoming rocket right on the Gaza border.
Administering in this area, spiritual warfare is definitely involved.
A 24/7 news network, bringing you the news you want from a source you can trust.
In Kenya, 40% of the medical services are actually provided by these Christian hospitals.
Let's talk about the economy.
Believers here are joining together to win people to Jesus Christ.
All your favorite shows now in one place. Go to CBNNewsChannel.com to find out how to get the CBN News Channel on your TV all day, every day. CBN News. Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
A recent study shows that 1 in 7 young people have sent a sext, a text message that includes fully or semi-nude photos. Reporters reveal the problem is worse since the pandemic, but one digital parent app is working to keep children safer online. Canopy blocks 99% of pornography online and can prevent sexting by detecting an inappropriate text before it is sent. Matt Gore, Director of Engagement at Canopy, told CBN's The Prayer Link that while the app is a great tool, a greater weapon against this problem is simply talking to your child about online dangers.
New evidence suggests that sexting is a driver of the mental health crisis in teens. Can you explain that?
Absolutely. New evidence shows that an increase of most teens who send inappropriate text messages or sex have anxiety, and many even have depression. Now, correlation doesn't necessarily mean causation, but let me tell you a story about how those two things could be connected. At Canopy, part of our job is to talk to parents about what their teenagers are experiencing online. And one dad told us this story. His daughter sent one nude image to her boyfriend while they were dating. Later, they broke up. And unfortunately, he actually shared that text message with a lot of other people. Of course, this was really horrible and humiliating for the girl, and someone who used to be described as full of life and really vivacious ended up having to switch schools because she no longer was comfortable going to her class. So this is why it's so important for parents to have conversations and also to use software like Canopy to keep their kids safer online.
Absolutely.
Yeah, very true. Matt, you say that talking with kids about sexting is a necessary conversation, that parents should not avoid this. Why is that? Break it down for us.
What really amazes, I think, a lot of parents is just how much teenage life has changed since we were teenagers. Things have really shifted. What you have to understand is that most of a teenager's social life now happens online. And so if you want to be an engaged parent, you have to be engaged with their digital lives and not just with their real lives. One study showed that 2/3 of 12 to 18-year-old girls had been asked for a nude image online. 2/3. That's amazing. And so what parents need to understand is that their kids, even good kids, are going to run into temptations online that they really need to be trained and have conversations with their parents about how to address.
And really quickly, how can people connect and find out more about Canopy?
People can go to canopy.us, that's canopy.us, to learn more about how to keep their kids safe online and really get a lot of great parenting resources to have hard but really important conversations with their kids.
You can catch Prayer Link on this station or on the CBN News Channel tonight at 6:30 Eastern, and we'll be right back.
I am Region's first ROTC graduate student.
I'm Ephraim Graham, and this is Studio 5. Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
The fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film, I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Wednesday night at 8:30 on the CBN News Channel.
How'd you like to get a redo on your health, on your body, on your arteries, so you could have the energy you had 20 years ago? The great news is you can. I'm Dr. Mike Roizen, chair of the Wellness Institute at the Cleveland Clinic. I've written 4 New York Times bestsellers. But even better than having to read all that, you can listen to this DVD and watch it. Protect your heart? Yes, you can. Here's how.
Go to CBN.com or call 1-800-700-7000 for your free copy of Protect Your Heart. Let the medical experts show you their new discoveries on how to avoid heart disease and even reverse it. Easy steps to uncover the hidden dangers in your medicine cabinet, reduce stress, and get a complete do-over for your health. Call 1-800-700-7000. That's 1-800-700-7000. Or go to CBN.com to claim your free copy of Protect Your Heart.
Corey Borner's walk to receive his college diploma was 12 years in the making. In 2009, he suffered a spinal cord injury during high school football practice that left him paralyzed. He charted a new path and is now a motivational speaker and a college grad. With the help of a robotic exoskeleton, he crossed the stage, his diploma from the University of North Texas, Dallas, proudly in hand. That's going to do it. Have a great day.